Hi everyone. So today's session is the assignment discussion session, and my name is Shazia Khan. The unit is communication skills for business. Before I go into the assignment discussion, I just want to give you an overview of what we've done in the learning outcomes. So it's just a brief overview. So in learning outcome 1, we looked at understanding how internal communication takes place within an organization. So things like the process for communication, to send information vertically, upward and downward and horizontally. So we'll be looking at elements of that. Also, we looked at in learning outcome 1 is how to provide information formally and informally, and also to look at how the message is transmitted to the receiver. So the receiver gets message, then the receiver gives feedback and responds to the message. We also looked at modes of communication. So written, letters, bulletins, notice boards, updates, newsletters, bulletins, face-to-face, oral briefings, appraisals, daily, weekly hurdles, electronic, email, Facebook, Twitter, blog, intranet, Yammer, Skype, conferences, whole staff meetings, trainings, and webinars. We looked at barriers to communication, clarity of written or a message, whether it's readable, whether the language, the tone is appropriate, the technology, poor connections, inappropriate use. We also looked at interpersonal relationships, personal conflict, non-verbal communication. Also, we looked at in learning outcome 1 is legal and ethical issues, so Freedom of Information Act, the General Data Protection Act, GDPR, confidentiality, looked at the equality legislation in regards to communication, and we also looked at ethical issues, which are things of the use of emailing, whistleblowing, organizational policies, why they are important in regards to ethical issues. We've looked at what communication is, what internal communication is, the different types of communication, so non-verbal and verbal, visual, how people interact with that. We also looked at the communication models, and we looked at Shannon and Weaver's model 1949. We looked at the transactional model by Barland 1970. We looked at the Weeks sense-making theory 1995 and the structuration theory by Giddens 1984. So these were some of the communication theories that we looked at. We looked at mechanisms of internal communication, such as formal, informal, and communication technologies. We then went on to look at the elements of process of internal communication within organizations. So the stages, so sender, encoding, channel, receiver, decoding, feedback, and noise. We then went on to look at the components for effective internal communication, so clarity and consistency, relevance and timeliness, engagement and participation, appropriate channels, cultural sensitivity. We then went on to look at the appropriate use of different internal modes of communication for different purposes. So modes of communication, written communication. We looked at bulletins, notice boards, and updates, newsletters. We looked at face-to-face communication and oral communication. We also looked at electronic communication, such as email, social media, blogs and intranet, Yammer and Skype. We looked at conferences, training events and webinars. And we went on to look at the barriers to effective communication within learning outcome 1. We then went on to learning outcome 2, which looked at understanding how organizations communicate with customers. We looked at formal communications such as websites, brochures, letters, newsletters, emails, telephone calls, face-to-face, public relations, informal communications such as social media, blogging and influences, and the impact of this on communication within an organization. We looked at understanding how organizations communicate with customers, so websites, what the advantages are, the uses, brochures, letters, newsletters, emails, telephone calls, face-to-face, public relations. We then went on to look at understanding how organisations communicate with customers informally, so social media, blogging, influencers, and we looked at evaluating communication systems by organisations, and we used the element of the case study, which was UK Varsity. We then went on to learning outcome 3, where we looked at understanding the factors that impact on effectiveness of communication in a business. And here we looked at impact of organisational relationships, and we looked at team cohesion, personal conflict, favouritism, hierarchical line management culture, why that's so important. We looked at the impact of non-verbal communication, so the tone of voice, body language, negative and positive reinforcement of oral message, contradiction of oral message, active listening and focusing. We also looked at impact of technology, so negative and positive impact. And we looked at the effectiveness, so clarity, messages received are the same as one sent, the purpose achieved. And we looked at elements of understanding why communication is so important within an organisation. We then went on to learning outcome 4, and we looked at presenting oral information effectively. In that, we looked at oral presentation, so formal presentation to a small group, staff, colleagues, management. We looked at complex information, general, introductory, complex facts, figures, datas, technology as a form of communication, presentation software, ICT, spreadsheets, handouts. We looked at effectiveness of it, were intended purposes met, the appropriateness of language used and body language, audience understanding and response, quality and appropriateness of information given. In regards to, we look at the ways to present oral information effectively. We looked at planning and preparation. So an outline was an introduction, main body and a conclusion. We looked at engaging delivery, interaction with the audience, effective use of technology. We then went on to look at learning outcome 5, which was to communicate effectively in writing. Here we looked at the elements of communication, complex information in writing, reports, briefing notes, press releases, social media, such as things like Facebook, Twitter, blogs. The purpose to present results to the board, so to launch a marketing campaign, conventions in a written communications. So we looked at formal reports, informal reports, emails, letters, texts, greetings, sign-off, tone, punctuation, and grammar. We also look at documents required for meetings, agenda, minutes, papers. We looked at quantitative data such as financial results, sales figures, changes in product features, productivity, energy efficiency, review written communication. For clarity, readability, appropriateness of media, use of visuals, tone, the language. So, and we also looked at review and adapt written communications, website, social media, emails, letters, the clarity, selection of material, choice of channel for purpose, the tone, the style of presentation. So is it formal or is it informal? And what is suitable for the intended audience. So we looked at elements of key methods such as emails, and what the purpose and key consideration was for each one. So we looked at emails, reports, memos. We also looked at letters, proposals, and minutes. We then went on to look at elements of newsletters, social media posts, blogs, and also looked at technical communication. And we looked at communicating complex information in writing, such as reports, press releases, briefing notes, formal reports. We looked at emails, letters, texts. We also looked at the effectiveness of technology in oral and written communication, negative impacts of technology in communication, and we looked at positive aspects as well of communication, because there's both negative and positive within communication. Maybe someone doesn't like computers, maybe it's the issue of that technology is not working properly, and it could stress people out. It has an effect on them. We also looked at elements of adapting our own written communication for different audiences, how we'd adapt our own compared to, trying to look at audience such as website clarity, the language we use, adaptation of material we use for that audience, suitability for that audience, whether it's suitable or not. And we also looked at elements of emails and websites and things like that in regards to learning outcome 1. In regards to learning outcome 5. So I've just briefly given you an overview of what we've done in learning outcome 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to start with the assignment discussion. So it's the assignment discussion. The unit aims to develop your knowledge and understanding of communication practices within organisations, and learners are introduced to the different modes and channels of communication used in organisations. In addition, learners will be able to develop their communication skills. Learners will also apply their own communication skills to typical organisational requirements. The learning outcomes, which I give you a little bit of an idea of what we did in each one, they're all on Moodle and they're all recorded on Moodle. Learning outcome 1 is to understand how internal communication takes place within organisations. Learning outcome 2 is to understand how organisations communicate with customers. Learning outcome 3 is to understand the factors that impact on the effectiveness of communications in business. Learning outcome 4 is to present oral information effectively. Learning outcome 5 is to communicate effectively in writing. So these are the 5 learning outcomes that we've done for this unit, communication skills. Right. When you submit your assignment, so this is when we're going to go through the assignment, briefing some information about the guidance and support as well. You need to make sure when you are doing your assignment that you have signed an assignment declaration, which is declaring that the work is original and it is your work. You have not copied the work and you haven't taken the work without referencing it. You are declaring that. So it's really, really important that you bear that in mind when you are signing this, that you are declaring that all the work you've submitted is yours. You need to make sure you reference things, and you need to make sure you avoid using AI to do your work, because that will come up straight away as a plagiarism detector. The link for the declaration of originality is on just there. We've put the link there for you to have a look at and to sign. So before you submit the assignment, or with the assignment, you will submit this assignment declaration with it as well, and put all your details, your name, your student number, your course, and your element of what you're doing and what unit it is. Okay, so this is really important when it comes to issues of plagiarism. You need to make sure, as we're going to go through the assignment, I will discuss that in more detail with you about issues of plagiarism. So this will go at the start of the assignment when you submit it with it, and you will sign this to declare that the work that you've done is your own work and you haven't copied from anywhere. So you need to make sure you're on top of things. What information needs to go in the assignment? So firstly, you need your name. Your name's really important, so we know whose work it is, your registration number, and the unit level, which in this case is level 4 diploma in business and management, and the unit you're doing is communication skills for business. So that all needs to go at the start page. A little bit about plagiarism and collusion, which I've gone through a little bit earlier as well to you. When you're doing the declaration, students must submit and complete work that is their own. So it needs to be your work, not anyone else's work, okay? Plagiarism is presenting thoughts, ideas, and words of another person as if it were your own, okay? Collusion may occur when students' assignments are very similar and in some cases identical. So you need to make sure they are not identical to that of another fellow student. This also amounts to plagiarism. Plagiarism is taken very seriously, and the students are strongly recommended to refer to the academic misconduct policy, which again is available on Moodle, which is the VLE support that we use. Everything is on Moodle, and the policy for academic misconduct is there. So you need to read that if you feel like, if that is one of the policies that needs to be read, and you need to make sure that you are aware of what happens if there is any form of plagiarism or collusion. So start of the assignment, you need to include the following. So you need a table of contents, and a table of contents is really important because it identifies where everything is and what page everything is. Make sure you page number your are inserted as well. Font size 12, 1.5 line spacing, page numbers to be inserted so that they correlate with the table of contents, and also the person reading it is able to understand where you've done each task. Introduction at the start is really important. You need to make sure that you are doing an introduction, a basic introduction, maybe a paragraph to identify what the area is, what you intend to do, and how you intend to do it. Make sure you are putting all the assessment criteria in headings, and I'll identify that. Your assessment, avoid using anything like bullet points, okay? Your assessment criteria, the work you do, each element needs to be in a heading. Do not change the wording of that heading, okay? General information. The top part of this unit will be delivered at UK Versity Online. Number of texts related to this unit we find in the VLE, which is Moodle. Handouts and briefings will be provided in the session, and everything, all the additional reading, all the resources, everything is available on VLE for you, which is Moodle. Study skills. Study skills developed and assessed through this assignment are critical thinking, planning, organizing, and time management. And that is so important in any assignment you do: planning, organizing, and time management. Researching. Researching is another key element of any sort of assignment, study skills. You need to research. Gathering information, note-taking and summarizing. Analyzing. Analysis, a really, really important aspect and a skill that you need to use throughout your academic life. Written skills, academic skills, including referencing, which we're going through, and in this case, Harvard referencing. Application of IT skills and reflection. These are really important skills throughout your assignment and your academic life. So the assignment scenario, let's go into the scenario now, and then we'll discuss what the expectation is, okay? So in the scenario, the senior management team, SMT, of a local medium-sized organization, SHDE Holdings, has become aware of communication problems within their organization. Customers have been complaining of poor service. The managing director is appalled to see spelling errors in letters, and now suppliers have refused to deliver further goods until they receive a response to their emails and phone calls about their outstanding invoices. So your work with a training consultancy, Training Solutions, an experienced colleague. So you work with this consultancy, and Asha Kumari has established the nature of the problems in SHDE Holdings, and you have been asked to work with the client to deliver the proposed staff training solutions. You received the following email and attached report from Asha. So this is the email from Asha Kumari regarding the situation. Dear whoever, I've recently visited SHDE Holdings and attached my report below. Please read this carefully. I would like you to finish this project. The business needs a workshop on communication with some training materials, for example, a manual or handouts plus a report for SMT. Please carry out the following tasks. So the report is towards the end, and the report is in your assignment brief on Moodle as well, but we'll go through the report later. So 1.3, task 1 of 3. So this is what they expect you to do. So this is task 1. Prepare a formal report for the senior staff and line managers at SHDE Holdings. You should include charts and graphs to present information and support the text of the report as appropriate. The report should include, so this is the first part of it. So this is task 1, should include this bit. So this should be a heading, and then you will write under it. So you need to explain the process of internal communication within organizations. So that is the part you will put as your heading. Then you will write the answer under it. So there's 3 parts to this report, okay, for the pass mark. So this is in, you will find the answer to this in AC 1.1, page 14 onwards in Learning Outcome 1. So you need to go to learning outcome 1, and page 14 onwards would be the answer to this part of it. Explain the process of internal communication within organizations. Then the second part of it is this one here. They want you to assess the methods of internal communication that should be used for different purposes. For example, letter for formal communication with customers, telephone call for clarification of a complex matter, and email for confirmation of detail. Please support this answer with examples that could apply to SHDE holdings. And that is your heading. So this is the second. So this is the first part with the heading, and you'll write under that heading. This is the second part, and you will write under that heading. This is also found in Learning Outcome 1, page 21 onwards, and it's AC 1.2 to answer that bit of it. Okay. The final one for the pass on task 1 is to analyze the barriers that exist within organization, giving examples from SHDE holdings, and that's Learning Outcome 1-2, pages 28, AC 1.3. You need to make sure every time you put each of these 3 parts for a pass, you make sure each of them heading stays the same. Do not change the wording as it is. Copy and paste that and then write under each one. So that's the 3 parts for the pass one. For the extension activity to gain a merit for task 1, you need to add a further section to your report in which you will be looking at this part here. Do not change the wording. Analyze legal and ethical relations issues in relation to communication of information within organization. And that's looking at 1M1, page 34 onwards on Learning Outcome 1. Okay, so you need to make sure you are looking at page 34 onwards on Learning Outcome 1 on the legal and ethical issues in relation to communication of information. And here you will be looking at elements of like the GDPR, you'll be looking at elements of equality, and you look at the elements of Freedom of Information Act. So that's on page 34 onwards on Learning Outcome 1. That's if you want to get the merit, okay? The learning outcomes and assessment criteria covered here is Learning Outcome 1, AC 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1M1, and LO5, AC 5.1. So that's for task 1. For task 2 of 3, as part of the training program, prepare a presentation with supporting speaker notes for the customer-facing staff at SHDE holdings. Please include, so you need to do this, an evaluation of communication systems that could be used to communicate with customers. Please evaluate different systems. For this, you will go to Learning Outcome 2, look at AC 2.1, page 17 onwards. Okay, so that will be your heading, and you will write under that heading the answer. That's for the task 2. The next one is an analysis of impact of organizational relationships on effective communication. And again, that's that will be the heading, and you will look at Learning Outcome on that, Learning Outcome 3 for that. And you will look at AC 3.1, page 13 onwards, okay, for that answer. Then you would look at, and do not change the wording of each one. The third part of the past one on task 2 is to look at Learning Outcome 3, and it's an assessment of the impact of non-verbal communication on oral communications. And that's AC 3.2, page 19 onwards on Learning Outcome 3. So you need to refer to Learning Outcome 2 and 3 here to get the answers. So there's 3 parts to it. You need to make sure you put that as a heading, do not change the wording, answer that, put that second bit as a heading, answer that, do not change the wording, and put that as a third heading and answer that for task 2. Here you are covering, as I stated, Learning Outcome 2, AC 2.1, Learning Outcome 3, AC 3.1 and 3.2 to cover them elements. Then we move on to task 3 of 3. So using task 3, using appropriate technology, deliver your presentation on the training day to staff at SHDE holdings. The extension activities for a merit. So this is for task 3. For a merit, you would need to produce a professionally structured document which you need to produce in regards to structured, which you will be looking at elements of assessing the effectiveness of technology in oral and written communication. So you will be doing that, and that is learning outcome 5M1, page 19 onwards. And that again is the heading that you will be doing for task 3. So for task 3, you've only got the merit and distinction 1 if you want to achieve that. Then for the distinction 1, you need to deliver an adapted presentation to the senior management. So presentation needs to be there, delivered, and it needs to be PowerPoint presentation. You need to look at 5D1, learning outcome 5. You need to also, for distinction, produce a document for the next SMT meeting, which provides a one-page summary of your presentation with your speaker notes and handouts. Members need to know your messages and the implications for the message for the business. So you need to, that is for the distinction 1. The learning outcomes here and assessment criteria covered are learning outcome 4, AC 4.1, 4D1, learning outcome 5, AC 5M1, and 5D1. Now for each of them, I've put where you can find the answers that will help and support you complete that. Okay, so make sure you are completing them, make sure you are putting them in headings, and make sure you are not changing the wording. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through the report. It's quite a long report, which is on Moodle for you with the assignment brief. So report on SHDE Holdings, Asha Kumari, 5th of July. So the introduction is SHD is an electrical supplier with the regional repair centres and shops. The organisation is currently experiencing operational problems that are affecting customer satisfaction. Many of these are outside of the scope of this report. Training Solutions has been asked to focus on communication issues both within the company and with the suppliers. So all them tasks are compared to this. The summary is SHDE Holding is an electrical company operating locally. It has been established for 10 years. However, it's only in the past 3 years that their market has grown rapidly. The turnover and payroll has tripled within the last year. The business is projected to grow by a further 100% within 3 years. The business is currently experiencing high levels of static customer complaints and staff turnover. The communication difficulties exist in all areas and at all levels of business. 2 solutions are proposed, a training session and a report to inform the influence SMT and line manager as we've gone through the tasks. Okay, so this report just refers to that. The research method. During commencing 15th of June, a consultant from Training Solutions spent 3 days at SHDE Holdings. The following research activities were carried out. Desk review of customer complaints, desk review of policies and procedures, interviews with 10 staff, including the managing director, operations manager, 2 shop floor staff, 2 delivery staff, the HR manager, 1 payroll assistant, the receptionist, and the premises manager. The findings were that SHDE Holdings has expanded rapidly in the past 3 years. There has been a huge increase in complaints from both customers and suppliers. Staff morale is low and staff turnover is high. It is clear that this company values their customers and had a record of excellent internal and external customer relations. The SMT are shocked to find that complaints have increased by 50% and staff turnover has increased to levels which are damaging to the business. Members of SMT acknowledge that there's communications issues within the company. The causes for complaints vary. Only 3% concern the product itself. Over 55% of complaints concern delivery. Over 75% of these are about late delivery. The remainder are about delivery to an incorrect address, and the delivery staff acknowledge these problems. There are sent notes in the internal post about changes to the delivery details, and by the time they receive them, the package has often been dispatched. Sometimes they are told about changes verbally and to fail to write the information down. There appears to be no formal system for communicated changes to orders. 25% of complaints concern poor face-to-face communication during the delivery of customer service on the shop floor. Some complaints refer to rudeness. One complaint made it clear that there was clearly conflict between staff on the shop floor. Other issues include misunderstandings, the fact that their store only sends texts to advise of the delivery times, and many of the older customers do not use texting. There are also issues with poor communication, English in written communications, and appearance of staff and the tone of some of the communications received are inappropriate. Carrying on with the report, there are no formal communication policies and procedures. As a result, there is no protocol for answering the phone, so practice varies. Complaints are often not acknowledged. It may take some weeks for a formal response. There's no standard protocol for internal communication. Some use internal posts, others use email or word of mouth. The company's Facebook page was recently used to inform customers of product changes. Suppliers are not dealt with consistently, and there are no monitoring processes for external communications. Communication between line managers and the staff is random. There appear to be no regular meetings to disseminate and gather information, and the SMT do not meet regularly. So the conclusions from the report is the communication problems at SHDE holdings affect all areas of business. All levels of staff are hindered by poor communications within the company, and the customers are not served to the appropriate standards. There's a huge potential for growth of this company, but for this to materialize, these issues must be addressed. The recommendations made were that 6.1, a series of training workshops is required for customer-facing staff. These workshops will be delivered to all staff and covered both internal and external communication. 6.2, in order to improve performance, SMT need to be advised of best practice in terms of organisational communication. A formal report for the senior staff and the line managers at SHDE holdings should be provided. Okay, so these are the recommendations. This is the report that you need to go through when looking at task 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so make sure you have a read of this report. It's on the assignment discussion. It's been recorded. It's also on the assignment brief on Moodle, which I will show you towards the end. So for all these tasks, the references that you should be using is that you should cite a range of case law, academic resources, or reliable sources, and a comprehensive list of Harvard references must be included at the end of the work. End of the work, make sure you do a conclusion and a reference list that I've just mentioned, which is a bibliography. Assignment guidance and support. So make sure you start with an introduction, conclusion. And this is repeating what I said earlier on. And the reason is it's important that you start and conclude and then the main body. Make sure that you are using Harvard system for referencing. You can refer to online sites that you may help, such as Neil's Toolbox. Neil's Toolbox is really good. It actually makes the reference up for you. Either it be website, it may be a book. Just make sure you use that or any other sites online that will help you. If you're using diagrams, please make sure you reference them accordingly. Make sure you have a bibliography reference list and it's in alphabetical order. Try to use more examples when explaining certain concepts. For example, when looking at theories or any sort of examples you're giving, make sure you are, using up-to-date examples as well. Make sure you're using assessment criteria as a heading. And I'm going to mention that quite a lot throughout, and I have mentioned it in task 1, 2, and 3. Make sure it's a heading. Do not change the wording, because I've known students to change the wording. Avoid changing the wording. Just copy and paste what it is, the heading of each task, and then write about it. You need to be referring to the indicative content and the word count all the time, okay? So important points, give proper headings and subheadings as we mentioned. Avoid bullet points. Do not use bullet points. Make your document look presentable and professional. If it's a PowerPoint slides, you can use bullet points there, but when it comes to your academic piece of work and you're talking about things, avoid using. It needs to be presentable and professional and an academic piece of work. Number your figures and tables, reference them. Follow the numbering on the assignment presentation as against the assignment brief. So what is expected, like AC 1.1, what is expected of you? Make sure you are referring to that, AC 1.2, each of the tasks. Ensure at least 12 to 15 references. Referencing should be in Harvard style, which is the referencing that is used at UK Varsity, and most institutions use that. Keep a check on your word count plus 20% tolerance for AI limit under 20%. Otherwise, it will be a form of plagiarism. Word limit report 3,500 words. Remember, there's a grading in this system: pass, merit, and distinction, dependent on what you complete and what tasks you complete. So if you do the extension for merit, you will get the merit. You need to make sure you do all the pass, all the merit to get a merit, pass and merit, and to get the distinction, pass, merit, and distinction elements. So you need to make sure you are covering everything to get the distinction. So all of it, pass, merit, and distinction once. So some useful tips: read the task carefully. It's really important you don't move away from what the task's asking you. Focus on the task and focus on the command words. The command words could be things like explain, define, describe, 100 to 125 words. Assess, examine, clarify, analyze, 175 to 225 words. Compare, contrast, critically evaluate, 250 to 300 words. And then Harvard referencing, again, we're going back to referencing. Make sure it needs to be the Harvard referencing. For example, in text, it needs to be the author. If you're doing it in your assignment, the author and the year. And then in the reference at the end, it will be shown as, it'll be everything. It'll be, the actual how you reference the full citation. So the publisher, the place it was published, the edition. Minimum of reference books, journals to be included in the bibliography. Give proper headings and subheadings, as I've mentioned. Do not change the wording. Make your document presentable and professional, and word limit 10% flexibility. Plagiarism tolerance, AI needs to be below 20%. Avoid using AI. Your plagiarism report will, be really low then. And, you don't want to be going into using AI because, you need to make sure that everything is referenced properly and you are not using AI to get your answers. You're using your slides to help you support you. Some preliminary, you need to make sure you're not copying and pasting work, as it's plagiarism and would lead to academic misconduct, which I mentioned before as well. And I will go reiterate this so many times. Academic misconduct, once you've read the policy, you're also making the declaration at the start that this is your work and it's your original work and you have not copied or colluded from anywhere. So you need to make sure that you are referencing your work and you are declaring the work. So it's, identifying that you are saying that that is your work. You haven't copied from anywhere. So, but then if you start copying and pasting, you have copied someone else's work. So you need to make sure you are referencing if you are taking anything. Again, make sure all your sources are referenced. It's so important. Refer to ebooks and journals. Any sort of additional reading on this is on Moodle. Your recorded sessions are on Moodle. Your PowerPoint slides are on Moodle. Your assignment brief is on Moodle. There will be a sample assignment on Moodle for you to have a look at. So please refer to that. If you're using UK Varsity slides, then the referencing will be as below: MDT, that's an example 2022, and when you put it in the main text, when you put it in the bibliography, you would put multidisciplinary teams, learning outcome 1, that's where you got it from, learning outcome 1, slides number 2 to 10, UK Varsity, published on 15th of January 2023. Okay. Really, really important. You are referencing properly because then your work will not come out as plagiarized. Also, another element is that you paraphrase things. If you paraphrase things, then when it comes to plagiarism, it won't come up as plagiarized. Any queries, questions, please email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Submission of the assignment is to be done on learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Now that we've done learning outcome 1, 2, 3 and 4, and the assignment discussion, you have 2 weeks to submit your assignment on completion of the unit and its delivery. So you need to make sure you're on top of things, make sure you take on board all the guidance and support that's been given, and also if you have any issues with any of the learning outcomes, go on Moodle, and the learning outcomes are there with the recorded sessions for you to work through. Any issues, please email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Make sure you are again, I'll reiterate importance of referencing, importance of plagiarism. You are signing a declaration, so make sure everything is on top of things. Make sure you are not bullet pointing your work and referencing your work. So before we finish this session, I just want to share with you the assignment brief, so you've got an idea of what it looks like on Moodle. So it's just... So this is the assignment brief, and this is what it'll look like on Moodle, and it goes through exactly what I've done, the assignment discussion. So it tells you the assignment scenario, then it'll go through the email, the tasks, so task 1, task 2 with all the learning outcomes, what you need to complete, task 3, and then finally, which we've gone through, is the report. So the report on SHT Holdings, Asha Kumari, and that will identify the findings, and in reference to that, you will be doing the assignment. And that is there for you to have read of, so you're able to identify what you need to do in each part and each task of the assignment. Okay, so this is all available on Moodle. Tasks are all there, and the report is there for you to have a read of. And we finished the session now, so you go on Moodle for any sort of extra reading, any additional information. We finished the session now, and if you have any issues or anything, email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk, and if you have any questions around that, email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Thank you for attending today's session, and good luck with getting on with the assignment. Thank you.